I was overwhelmed by the passion that these people brought to their topics. I've spent most of my career in magazines and newspapers, and if I had known these people 25 years ago, I think the newspapers and magazines that I would have edited would have been quite different.
CNBC is a money show that I do. Every now and again, they bring me in to talk about politics and how Super Tuesday affects the markets, or how Romney's big loss in whatever state affects the markets, and Obama's confidence.
Spent 10 minutes handwriting this on the subway.
I turned that out in about an hour. I had a reaction, I had a response.
Your production level was like 200% increase. I mean, it was like raining op-eds.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christina Greer, and I'm an expert in American politics, public opinion, and race and immigration.
I am a professor at Fordham University and an expert on freshwater ethics in an era of economic globalization.
I'm an expert in non-suicidal self-injury.
Adolescent girls, Caribbean immigrants in Brooklyn, and popular culture.
Latinos and Latinas in the United States.
Aging in the criminal justice system.
Histories of interracial relationships.
18th century literature, particularly novels.
The history of American women.
And I'm an expert in consumer psychology.
The first idea that I had and worked with Harriet on got published in my first choice place. It really was such an important moment for me. I was really glad that I dreamed big. The people who I write about, adolescent girls, mostly from Brooklyn, mostly African American or Caribbean, mostly working class, don't read academic texts. They watch television, they watch movies, but they don't read academic publications.
It was on Puerto Rico, and it was on the status question of Puerto Rico, which I've been obsessed with since I was a kid. But I found a whole completely different voice. A voice that was very distinct from a scholarly voice that I had, and it was actually a voice I felt that I was more empowered in some ways compared to my scholarly voice. To be able to, or let's say to not have to extinguish or dampen down the passion or what my opinion, my position was, with the evidence, a healthy respect for evidence.
This project has been an amazing invitation to cultivate my voice for the public good. There are over 29 chemicals currently listed on federal registers as carcinogens that are in active use in fracking. These are currently unregulated. There are really enormous consequences for the health of watersheds, for the health of individuals, especially the elderly and young children.
The issues really aren't that cut and dry. A company that can be justifiably so criticized for labor practices isn't all bad. In many places throughout the United States, Walmart is the place to hang out. Walmart is where you see your friends and neighbors. Our understanding of psychology can not just help business and help marketers, after all I'm a marketing professor, but also can help consumers make better choices for themselves.
When the media has been addressing these changes to the MCATs, they talk about how the emphasis on psychology is going to improve bedside manner and improve the way that physicians can relate to their patients. And I wrote a piece because that really isn't all that psychology has to offer. There is quite a bit of stigma that's associated with some of the issues that we deal with, and the best way that we're really going to be able to overcome that stigma is by increasing education to the general public.
I wrote a piece for CNN.com about the 20th anniversary of Hillary Clinton's 1992 comment that I could have stayed home and made cookies, but I didn't. It was a kind of formative comment, and I'd always felt like Hillary Clinton was unfairly vilified and that people didn't understand the history of either her life and how it fit in with women's history, or the significance of that comment. And I actually was thinking about Karina's piece on Coney, and you used your teaching expertise.
I'm passionate about Africa, and I teach African history, and I've, for the last 20 years, I've been going back and forth between here and West Africa. I'm not just having an impact on my students, and I'm not just having an impact on, you know, the 5 people that are going to read my book, but that I'm actually having a much broader impact on the ways in which people think about the African continent, its history, its past, present, its future.
The more that I've researched about aging prisoners, it's clearly a crisis that is in need of intervention. There are so many older adults suffering behind prison walls. It's public opinion that can sway the policymakers to make change.
This project has completely rejuvenated me.
The first day of the program really jump-started my writing because we were asked a question, what's your expertise? And of course I gave the answer I just gave here, right? My expertise is 18th century literature. But at the time I was really thinking, my expertise is envy. All I know about is envy. All I can think about is envy. And somehow by the end of the program, or the end of that day, I began to think about envy as something I could actually write about as a literary scholar. I began to think about all of the characters who experience envy. And it was wonderful. All the people who wrote back and saying, you know, I'm envious of your piece, was kind of funny, of course.
Usually I'm just with an older white man. Oftentimes they get chosen first to sort of say something. And then I say something, and I like always catch them on the side of my face. And they're like, I never really thought of my quotes that appeared in, you know, the New York Times or the AM New York or the Metro. It's just a quote that I gave about a local election or a comptroller or a city council member. And now, as a member of the op-ed project, you know, to really realize that it's not just about writing longer pieces, which is definitely a goal and an important, very important aspect of the program, but to really think of myself as a thought leader. And so when my students or miscellaneous people say, I really liked your quote, I realize now that my little words here, my 5 minutes on a news program, really does contribute to helping someone understand the American political process, and that's why I got my PhD in the first place. Not only did he go point by point against the RNC and sort of Mitt Romney's claims from the previous week, the genius of the
Fordham to invest so that not just its students, but its faculty can be men and women for others and speak in a way that others can understand, is, to my mind, for Fordham to really be itself in the truest terms.
So where are we? It's just a headshot? I wrote a dissertation that became a book, and I learned to write for a broad audience because an editor friend of mine sat next to me and helped me translate my prose line by line by line. And what she helped me do is not just translate my prose, but translate the way that I think about myself and the way I carried my ideas in the world. I want to help others do what I learned to do myself.
Okay, just count to 5, Abby.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Our vision is of a world where the best ideas and the best knowledge, regardless of where they come from or whom they come from, will have a chance to be heard and shape society in the world.
It's important for these women and men to get their voices out there and be heard because they have so much to contribute and they have so much to offer and they have so much knowledge and they have so much insight and they have so much expertise.
If you say things of consequence, there may be consequences, but the alternative is to be inconsequential. And it's ultimately about mattering.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Is that all right? That was totally.